What's up, everybody? Going down this weekend, we got UFC Fight Night Seattle, Israel Adesanya versus Joe Pyfer, and this is going to be my full card breakdown and predictions. Excited for this card. I think we got a lot of fun matchups on here. I'm excited for the main event. Let's rock and roll right into this thing. Our first fight of the night, we got Alexia Thainara versus Bruna, Brazil. So this is a rematch. And the only loss of Alexia's career was to Bruna, Brazil, to where Bruna was able to submit her late in the fight. And I feel like these fighters are at two very different points in their careers right now. And I think that Alexia is going to get her get back in this fight. And I think that she's going to go out here and make this look pretty easy against Bruna, Brazil and win by a decision. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if she's able to finish her because we've seen that Alexia has gotten a lot better throughout her career, and she's been on an absolute roll ever since coming into the UFC on Contender Series, picked up a nice victory, submitted Molly McCann, which was very impressive, and then most recently going out there and beating Loma Lukbume. I mean, Loma's a very technical fighter. She's got good Muay Thai on the feet, and what we saw was Alexia just kind of bully her around. She's aggressive on the feet. She throws with bad intentions, man. She's got power in everything she does, and she's got a really, really good ground game. So even though, Bruno submitted her the first time around, I don't think that's happening this time. I think Thainara's ground game has gotten a lot better, and I think on the feet we've seen with Bruna, Brazil, she can do a good job of sticking and moving. But if you go back and watch this fight with Ketlin Souza and in some of these losses, even against Kong Wang, I mean, they're not bad losses. These are good opponents and good strikers. But something happened to Bruna Brazil's confidence, in my opinion. If you go back and you watch these fights, she looks technical, she looks good, she looks sharp, and then the minute she gets tagged with a big shot, it just seems like she shuts down. I don't know exactly why that is. She was someone that I really enjoyed watching. I still enjoy watching her fight. She's very technical, sticks and moves, throws good kicks from range, mixes things up really well. She's got good movement, but the minute she takes one big shot, it just feels like her demeanor changes. She shuts down and the output starts to slow. And I think that's a disaster for her in this fight against a very confident Alexia Thainara who is firing on all cylinders. She's a well-rounded striker, but her ground game is where she is especially dangerous. So I think Alexia will outstrike her on the feet, land the bigger shots. And then if the fight hits the floor, I don't think Bruna is going to have an advantage like maybe she did back in the day. Give me Alexia Thainara to get this one done over Bruna, Brazil and get her get back. I think Thainara is very dangerous. She's well-rounded. She's powerful. I think that she comfortably wins this fight over Bruna, Brazil. A few years ago, if they ran the rematch back a few years ago, maybe Bruna, I feel like a little bit better about her possibly winning, but at this point, she's technical. Sometimes I think she overthinks things, and I think Alexia is going to get in her face, make this a dogfight, and just kind of pressure the heck out of her, take away the space. I think this is a bad matchup at this point in time for Bruna, Brazil. Alexia, I think she's the real deal. Next, we got Ricky Simón versus Adrian Yanez, one of my favorite fights on this card. Now, we have not seen Adrian in quite some time. We haven't seen him in a little over a year to where he lost a very close fight to Daniel Marcos, who's an absolute savage, who's a very good fighter, very well-rounded. And then before that, knocked out Vinicius Salvador, right, which not the greatest win. It was still an impressive KO, but let's be honest, it was a layup to get Adrian Yanez back on track. But this is a guy that had so much hype, man. Right, people were like, this is the next Jorge Masvidal, which I didn't really see the comparisons, maybe because of the boxing, but I think this dude's kind of his own type of dude, man. He's got really, really slick boxing, really good boxing. We saw it against Tony Kelly. We saw it against Randy Costa, but kind of the theme of Adrian Yanez is as good as his boxing is offensively and defensively. We see some really good head movement. But he kind of leaves the head on the center line a little bit. I feel like that gets overlooked when it comes to Adrian because he is a very good boxer. He leaves his head on the center line a lot. I'm not quite sure why that is, but he's been caught and wrung in a lot of these fights. Now, granted, these are not horrible losses. I mean, he got all the hype. They put him in a big spotlight against Rob Font, and we know who Rob Font is, especially almost 3 years ago, the prospect slicer. Rob Font has got a nasty jab, really good boxing, very durable, and he was able to put it on Adrian Yanez and catch him in the pocket and get him out of there. So, again, getting stopped by Rob Font, not the greatest look. But we've seen Yanez can hang with some of the better strikers, right? He was going out there having some success with the hands, but Jonathan Martinez, one of the nastiest leg kickers that we've probably ever seen in the UFC. And then that win over Salvador, again, it was a layup. And this fight against Marcos, I thought it could have went either way. And Adrian is a guy that if he's on the feet, he has a shot, I think, against most guys in this weight class. His boxing is clean. The combinations are excellent. Good straight punches, rips nasty shots to the body. My question coming into this fight is not if he can outstrike Ricky Simón, because I have a ton of confidence that he could do so. It's also the question mark of we really haven't seen Yanez against a guy that has the style of a Ricky here. And you know, Daniel Marcos was able to take down Adrian Yanez and give him some problems on the floor. And that's not a great look. Even though Yanez was able to get back to his feet and was able to still land some really good shots, I'd like to think that Ricky Simón is probably a better wrestler than Daniel Marcos. I feel like that's pretty safe to say. And, you know, Ricky Simón, dude's got a win over Merab Dvalishvili. So, you know, I mean, Ricky Simón's just been around, man. He's been around for a while. You know, it's just crazy that he beat Merab. I mean, again, it was early in Merab's career, but still was able to sub him. You know, loses to Mario Bautista. We know how good Mario is. Vinny Oliveira, you know, hyped up guys. Even though he lost to Mario, he's still very dangerous, is Vinny Oliveira. Knocked out Javid Basharat. And I think that this was on the last time they were in Seattle. So if Ricky Simón shows up to this card and he's got the short hair, dyes it blonde where he was Ricky Oliveira in this fight against Javid Basharat, maybe Yanez is getting knocked out. I don't know, right? And then Cameron Smotherman, I think Cameron took this fight on short notice, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe a slightly similar style to a Yanez where he's got the boxing, suspect takedown defense, but I think Yanez is still better. And then most recently loses to Hani Barcelos, and styles make fights. Barcelos, really good grappler. Ricky just couldn't run him over with the takedowns, and then he got outstruck on the feet. So for me in this fight, it's kind of a striker versus grappler matchup, even though we've seen Ricky striking get better. And listen, I know he knocked out Basharat, but Ricky Simón doesn't usually have a ton of power in his hands. I know he's finished guys before, and he's got underrated sting. I'm not saying that he can't knock out Adrian Yanez. I think he could definitely hurt him. But putting Adrian Yanez out clean, that would be insane. Maybe he dies to hair blonde, shows up for this fight. Maybe it happens. But most likely, I think Ricky's going to put a ton of pressure on Yanez, look to get a hold of him, get his hands locked, take him down, control him on the floor, work some ground and pound, because that's really where Ricky is at his best. And we've seen on the feet, if you're worried about the takedowns and he could start to straighten out the right hand, start to throw these big overhands and kind of charging into range, and you're not really providing some sort of threat to gain the respect of Ricky, that's where I could see Adrian being in some trouble. But I think Adrian Yanez is going to be able to do enough on the feet to gain the respect of Ricky Simón. And I think Yanez, I can't put him into the scrambly rascal category yet when it comes to the takedown defense and the squirminess on the ground. But I got some suspicions that he's going to be scrambly enough in this fight to work back to his feet. And I think Ricky Simón is very good. I think that this is a very even fight. And I definitely see a path to victory for Ricky. Landing some shots on the feet, taking Yanez down, just being able to put him in the meat grinder, move forward, put a ton of pressure on him. And I feel like Ricky can definitely do that. But I'm thinking if Yanez stops these takedowns, are we really thinking that Ricky can just outstrike Adrian Yanez? I mean, I understand styles make fights in the Barcelos fight, but man, Adrian Yanez is a slick boxer, and I'm not giving up on Adrian Yanez, man. This is a guy, I think I picked Marcos to beat him, but again, Marcos is well-rounded. He's got an underrated ground game. He's, I think, much better than Ricky Simón on the feet. Maybe not as much power, but he's more versatile, can switch stances, give you a bunch of different looks, the leg kicks, right? And, Ricky can throw some leg kicks, but not a guy that's really known for doing so. Kind of a blocky dude who's just going to kind of move forward, try to impose his style on you, and I feel like if Ricky can do that, he's definitely capable of winning this fight. But I think that this might be closer than what a lot of people anticipate, because if this was just a straight-up striking battle, I'm picking Yanez all day long. So pretty much I think Yanez is able to stuff the takedowns. Even if he gets taken down, he's going to get back to his feet. And I think he's going to make Ricky pay on the feet. I think Ricky will have some early success with the striking, but Yanez has that boxer's-like approach where he fights behind the jab, picks up his reads, and then after that first round, you really start to see Yanez's confidence gain. You start to see him fight behind the jab, set up the right hand, rip the hooks to the body. And I think he's going to be able to out-damage Ricky Simón in this fight. And I know Ricky fighting on these Seattle cards, he's at home in Washington. He's going to be excited. He's going to be all amped up. I like both of these guys. They're always in very entertaining fights. But I'm going to side with Adrian Yanez here. I like his boxing a lot. I think his defense is a little overrated, but on the offensive side of things, man, Yanez is some of the cleanest boxing, I think, in the UFC, especially in the bantamweight division. Again, different kind of style matchup. A guy in Ricky that can put a pace on you. He can pressure the heck out of you, has underrated sting on the feet. Not a crazy power puncher, but he definitely has the power to be able to hurt you if you're not careful. So Worried for Yanez in this fight a little bit, considering the style that we know Ricky has, but I think Yanez is going to be able to dot up Simone on the feet and outstrike him if Barcelos was doing it. Yanez is a much better boxer than Barcelos, even though Honey's got some underrated striking as an underrated fighter overall. I get it. Styles make fights. Yanez doesn't have the grappling of a guy like Barcelos, but on the feet, I think Yanez is going to be able to outscore Ricky Simone and outdamage him with the boxing. Give me Adrian Yanez in this fight. And as good as Ricky's striking has gotten throughout the years, it's definitely not as good as a guy like Jonathan Martinez or Daniel Marcos, in my opinion. So give me Adrian to get this one done. I think his boxing will be slick. I think he'll have some answers for the takedowns. He's going to get taken down, but I think he'll get back up, outwork him on the feet with the boxing. I like Yanez in this fight. Next, we got Navajo Stirling versus Bruno Lopes. I like this fight because I think that Bruno Lopes is a little bit underrated. Now, when I say underrated, I don't mean that he's the next, light heavyweight champion or anything. And believe me, I understand, got knocked out by Ribeiro on the Contender Series. And, when you lose to Brenson Ribeiro, it's never the greatest look. But again, that's almost 3 years ago. Goes into LFA, gets the W, comes back. And I always say this. Fighters that lose in the Contender Series, they come back, they get another chance, and they get the job done. I find that very impressive because some fighters, they can be like, it didn't happen. I guess I'm not going to be in the UFC. And you see a guy like Bruno Lopes like, no, I'm making this happen. I'm going to get to the UFC. So I respect the heck out of that. And he came out and looked really, really good in his second go-round. Right? Beat Magomed Ghazi-Asula, but, Magomed ended up being a pretty big disappointment. Then most recently got starched by Dustin Jacoby 9 months ago. But Dustin Jacoby, he's kind of having a resurgence late in his career. And to be fair, Dustin's a very high-level kickboxer. Fought in glory, switches stances well, can pick and poke, and then walk you into a power shot if you're not careful. But for me, Bruno Silva, he's one of these guys that he's got dangerous power. He's got an underrated ground game. But I feel like everything that he does well is kind of canceled out by Navajo Stirling. And while I've been a little bit underwhelmed with Navajo Stirling, I feel like he had a ton of hype coming in, right? Training over at CKB. His style is very much like Adesanya and those CKB guys, right? They all kind of have the same, stance, the same movement. They switch stances. The leg kicks from range. They get the jab popping, the left hook. They're all very, very polished on the feet, and they're very, very well educated. They are tacticians, and they are building their reads, and they're very methodical on the feet, and I find Navajo very fun to watch. And even though we have not seen finishes, he had the finish on the Contender Series, which was incredibly impressive against Philip Letal. That was a nasty left hook, right? Beat Tuco Tucos by decision, beat Ivan Urslan. But what we're seeing in these fights is we're seeing him have to work a little bit. We're seeing him have to grapple a little bit. And this win over Rodolfo Bellato is, much as I say Rodolfo Bellato is kind of this glass cannon to where he's like, low-key durable, but gets rocked and dropped easy and somehow is like not durable, but durable at the same time. Bellato's pretty dangerous. He's not an easy layup for anybody. And what we've seen from Stirling is, he was doing the grappling competitions. He's a well-rounded fighter. I think in this fight, it's one of the scenarios to where if Navajo does not knock Bruno Lopes out, which again, we haven't seen Navajo knock anybody out since the Contender Series. And I've been picking him to knock a lot of people out, and he hasn't been doing it. But I actually think that this is a tailor-made matchup for him to actually get a KO in this fight. And I'm going to say that maybe it happens early because Bruno's going to come after him. Bruno's going to put his foot on the gas. Bruno Lopes is a fun fighter. He's going to get in your face, look to land those power shots, look to get to the takedowns. But I think that that's going to benefit Navajo in this fight. And I don't know if you guys have seen Adesanya's vlogs and some of the stuff I've been seeing on social media. Navajo looks in incredible shape, man. I think he's taken his game to another level. He's undefeated. He's really, really methodical on the feet. He's got a beautiful jab. The front kicks up the middle. The leg kicks. Just gives you so much to think about. And he chips away, chips away, chips away. And I think that he's going to chip away at Bruno Lopes. Bruno's going to get kind of frustrated, not being able to land on the target, not being able to get the takedowns. His leg's going to get beaten up. He's going to be getting battered to the midsection, peppered with the jab, to where he's going to overswing on something, and that's where we're going to see Navajo find that left hook once again like we saw on the Contender Series against Philip Letal, and I think he's going to knock out Bruno Lopes in the second round. But if he doesn't get the KO, we're back to square one with Navajo Stirling of just outscoring him. Maybe he mixes in his own grappling a little bit. I think he's going to be patient, knows Bruno's very dangerous. Navajo's a smart fighter. He's a true tactician. Sometimes I feel like he overthinks a little bit in there, but I think in this fight he'll be rangy, he'll be smart, he'll mix up the targets. He'll kind of be very cautious early, knowing how dangerous Bruno is. And then eventually, I think Bruno is going to walk into something, because we've seen Bruno Lopez's chin is very suspect. It feels like if you go, Bruno Lopez is, wobbling. You're just blowing his direction. You kind of just flick him, and he's rocked and wobbly a little bit. So not quite sure what's going on there. Got some questions about the durability of Bruno. Navajo's durable. He's gritty. He's well-rounded, and maybe it's going to pay off in the long run. Going to a bunch of decisions, getting some cage time, getting some experience. I like Navajo Stirling a lot. I've been high on him. I think he actually gets a knockout in this fight. I think it's a tailor-made fight for him to be able to get a KO, a guy that is going to come after him, look to press the action, and not be afraid to try to get in his face. So give me Navajo Stirling to knock out Bruno Silva in the second round. If not, he'll win a decision by outpointing him. Okay, we got Casey O'Neill versus Gabriella Fernandes. Anybody got a coin around here I can flip in the air? Man. So this fight to me is really even. And I think that we might get a split decision here. Maybe we get just a close unanimous decision. I don't know. I think it's a close fight. Because for me, Casey O'Neill, if she was active, maybe I would feel a little bit better, with her coming into this fight. But she hasn't fought in almost 2 years. And she beat Luana Santos, which is a good win. I mean, this was a pretty solid performance. But before that, her second fight, it was over 2 years ago. Gets subbed by Ariana Lipski. Loses to Jennifer Maia 3 years ago. Look at the activity here. And again, sometimes we talk about activity and then it ends up biting us in the rear end because we're like, I don't know if I could pick this fighter because they haven't fought in so long. And I don't always, make that the end all be all, because she's 28 years of age. And sometimes when we see fighters away from a long period of time, they come back and you either kind of have the ring rust and you don't really look like yourself, or you look improved and you might look better, which that's definitely possible for Casey O'Neill because she's a solid striker. She's got good output, good volume. We've seen that throughout her career, right? Again, it's just crazy, the inactivity from Casey O'Neill. I know she's been through a lot. It's nuts, man, the inactivity. And I have a hard time picking fighters that are out of the octagon for a while. And you're not coming back against a layup here. Gabriella Fernandes is tough. She's a good striker. She's got good power, good movement. She's got a lot of confidence coming into this fight, a 3-fight win streak. And Casey O'Neill, she's as tough as they come, man. And I really like Casey O'Neill's style. Moves forward, volume, good elbows, good knees, good clinch game, solid ground game. And I think that she has the volume edge, and I think that she honestly has the grappling edge. But I don't know if the grappling edge is enough in this fight against Gabriella Fernandes, because what we've seen from Gabriella, we saw her lose to Jasmine Jasdavicius, but we know how good of a grappler Jasmine is. So that's not a bad loss. She's a better grappler than Casey O'Neill, I'd say. Teresa Bleda, not a horrible loss. Right, so she's losing to solid opposition, and most recently was able to beat Carly Judice, which that's aged really well because we know how good Carly is on the feet. And this win right here, this is the win that kind of put Gabriella on the map, I'd say. Rocking Kong Wang with a head kick, bang, bang, Wong, right? And then ending up getting a submission. That was a great win. Most recently beating Julia Stoliarenko, so she's been on fire. But the problem I have with Gabriella Fernandes as well is sometimes she doesn't do a whole lot to separate herself. And I feel like this is a tactician on tactician. The grappling edge maybe goes to Casey O'Neill. I don't know. We haven't seen her in a while. Maybe the output goes on her side. And we've seen that Gabriella Fernandes sometimes can freeze up if you're putting a ton of output out there. If you're threatening with the grappling, she tends to kind of shell up a little bit and get really gun shy. And if that happens, she's going to get outstruck and she'll lose this fight against Casey O'Neill. And if she doesn't have an answer for the takedowns and can't work back to her feet, can't stuff some of the takedowns, Casey O'Neill runs away with this fight, in my opinion. Even though I said it was going to be close. The more I think about it, I actually think if Gabriella cannot stop the grappling and she's too gun shy, I think Casey O'Neill can get it done. But I think Gabriella Fernandes is going to win. I think she's going to win. And I'm kind of playing ping pong in my head, man, because I really do think that this is a close fight. I think Casey O'Neill is more well-rounded, but I say that, but at the same time, Gabriella Fernandes has gotten better, man. Submitting Bang Bang Wong is impressive. Dropping her on the feet, having moments with the striking. I just feel like she's more precise with her shots. While O'Neill might be throwing more volume out there, Gabriella's going to be landing, the more sharpshooting, damaging shots. So I wouldn't put it past her to wobble Casey in this fight. I wouldn't put it past her to stick and move and, maybe reverse some positions on the floor. And then that kind of deters Casey from grappling and takes some of the confidence away from Casey O'Neill if she's not able to have success with the takedowns. Or she's more than capable of striking with Gabriella Fernandes. She's got a 3-inch reach advantage, but sometimes we don't see Casey utilize the reach too much. Kind of crashes the boards, crowds the space and becomes, more of a hittable target. I don't know, man. This is a weird fight. I don't have a ton of confidence in this one, so I'm going to say on the lower confidence side, but I'm going to side with Gabriella Fernandes. I like what she's been doing. I like that she's been more active. I think she's got the more powerful striking. I like the accuracy, and that win over Bang Bang Wong, that's a big deal, man, because I'm very, very high on Wong. So to go out there and do that, she sets up her strikes nice. She's got good movement, can walk you into shots. I feel like while Casey is the output, Gabriella is a little bit more methodical in the way that she sets things up on the feet. But don't put it past Casey O'Neill. We've seen back in the day if she can take you down, she's not just holding. She's got some ground and pound, has a roll-rounded game, but I'm going to side with Gabriella Fernandes, the activity, the momentum, but don't count out Casey O'Neill in this fight. I think this is a close one. Next, we got Marcin Tybura versus Tyrell Fortune. So Tyrell, if you guys do not know, if you don't know now, you know, is a fortune teller. And I spoke with him not so long ago about this opportunity here. And we were talking about the fortune telling thing. And he said, look, and I'm messing around. I'm going to keep laughing if I keep going on with the joke. But listen, Tyrell Fortune, he's not that good. I'm going to be honest, he's not that good. He's got a wrestling background. I know people will glaze it. They'll be like, oh, you know, he wrestled and, you know, he's got some power on the feet, but he hasn't fought anybody, dude. He has not fought anybody. I think the most notable win he probably has was, a Mitrione back in the Bellator days, and that was an older Mitrione. I mean, he's over in, PFL, right? He was in Bellator, and he's getting some wins on the regional scene and doing what he can to fight and stay active. And I get it's not the easiest thing finding heavyweight fights on the local scene. This, to me, just comes down to the fact of if this was a few years ago, I'm picking Marcin Tybura all day long over Tyrell Fortune. Because while Tybura is not very explosive, his striking has never been good, he just finds a way to take a beating early, weather a storm, find a way to get you down, control you on the ground, posture up, land some ground and pound. He'll find a way to get to the back. He'll just figure it out. That's Marcin Tybura. He's a lost compass at this point, man. It's like the needle's moving there. You don't know if you're going east, west, north, south. Like, Marcin Tybura, to me, has lost the compass. And that's what it comes down to. I don't even know if that makes any sense, but you get what I'm saying. Marcin Tybura is 40 years of age. And I have no problem picking these fighters from Poland when they're older because they still are very competitive with high-level fighters. But Tyrell Fortune, back to the fortune-telling thing, man. I feel like he's fortune-telling a little bit here, and we're going to get a knockout. And I think he's going to end up knocking out Marcin Tybura in the first round. And if he doesn't knock out Marcin Tybura, I think that means that Tybura is able to get him down, able to lay on him, able to control him, soften him up with some ground and pound, maybe even submit him. Or Tybura just controls him and wins a decision. So this to me is it's a weird fight in a way because I don't think Tyrell is that good, but he is explosive on the feet and it's heavyweight. And we saw with Marcin Tybura, I faded him in this fight against Ante Delia because Ante Delia has that style to be able to stuff the takedowns, put some speed with the boxing on you, and was able to get Marcin Tybura out of there. And that's what we've seen from Tybura. I mean, almost 2 years ago, sub-tied to Ivasa, got subbed by Sergey Spivak, which isn't a bad loss, gets knocked out by Janata Deniz, gets, the decision when I picked him in that fight against Mick Parkin, but it was really close. It was really close. So I don't think Tyrell Fortune is really that great, and I don't love picking fighters coming from PFL, Bellator, or whatever in their debut, even though he was on the regional scene since. But I don't know, man. He does have enough speed. He does have enough power. His wrestling is solid, but we've seen him on his back. For a guy that has good wrestling, and kind of, has a wrestling background, we've seen him on his back and have some issues. So I don't particularly like that because Marcin Tybura, to me, is by far the best guy he's fought. The problem is Tybura is 40 years of age, and he's kind of a sitting duck. He doesn't have a ton of power. He doesn't really have anything to make you fear him on the feet. So I just see Tyrell just kind of walking into the fire here, sprawl and brawl. If Tybura tries to shoot a takedown, I think Fortune comes out excited in the debut for the opportunity and gets Marcin Tybura out of there in the very first round. In the lighter weight classes, a guy that's coming over from Bellator, PFL, I usually never pick them in the debut especially. But in heavyweight, I tend to ignore that rule, and we've been right a lot of the time, especially, for example, like Ante Delia, Rizvan Kuniev. Even though he lost to Curtis Blades, I thought that Kuniev won that fight, and we just saw him beat Almeida. So I tend to ignore that, especially At heavyweight, I'll do it again here, and I'll say Tyrell Fortune ends up getting the knockout. He's just faster, more explosive at this point. His ground game, I think it's suspect, even though he's got the wrestling background. I think it's good enough to sprawl and brawl, put something on Tybura, and get him out of there early. But if he doesn't, and he lets Marcin hang around with all the experience that he has, he's been in there with some of the best heavyweights in the world, I could definitely see Tybura kind of finding a way to navigate this thing and get this one done. But being older, sluggish on the feet, I feel like he's kind of a sitting duck, and Tyrell's going to get after him and end up knocking him out. Give me Tyrell Fortune. All right, we got Chase Hooper versus Lance Gibson. Now, I feel like a lot of people out there are going to be very, 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 very quick to just say, well, Chase Hooper all day long. And I'm not going to pretend that I'm some hardcore man, but please tell me when Chase Hooper has really been able to beat a solid striker that is in the prime of their career, that is an older guy, that does have some striking capabilities on the feet with some speed. I don't think that he has a win over a guy like that, right? I mean, a lot of these wins are older fighters. I mean, this win actually has aged really well over Jordan Levitt. That was an impressive win, right? Knocked, Borshov down, was able to catch him on the feet and submit him. That was very impressive. Sub Clay Guida, beat Jim Miller by decisions, coming off of a devastating knockout loss to Alexander Hernandez. I believe that was at UFC 319. So Chase Hooper's a guy that's grown up in the UFC. 6'1", 74-inch reach. He's got a funky style, where his striking's gotten a lot better, right? Over the years, Chase Hooper, when he first came into the UFC, his striking was horrible. It was awful. Some of the worst. I mean, there's people in a cardio kickboxing class that were better than Chase Hooper when he first came into the UFC at striking. And you could still maybe make the argument, right? Chase Hooper's got solid kicks. His hands have gotten a little bit better, but his striking by no means is good. I still don't think it's good. Really, with this fight, if he's stuck on the feet for 15 minutes against Lance Gibson, I think that there's a world where Lance Gibson can outstrike Chase Hooper. Because while Lance Gibson's coming over from Bellator, and I know, he had some experience over there, and he's kind of hot and cold and all this kind of stuff, this was not a split decision against Bob Green. Bob Green clearly won this fight, and we picked Bob to win. And he went out there and kind of just was that smooth, slippery customer on the feet. And Lance Gibson had a problem with the speed of Bob Green. And then again, Green was able to take him down. So when I see that, I'm like, whoa. Bob Green, we know, has underrated grappling. I've been saying that for years, but he's a striker. Chase Hooper is a really, really, really dangerous submission ace on the ground. His jiu-jitsu is very high level. His wrestling is not the greatest, but he understands, with all the experience that he has, he knows how to find ways to get into these entanglements. I like to call them entanglements. Not really shooting a beautiful blast double like Hamzat, or a nice, trip or whatever like Islam and Oliveira getting his hands locked and taking you down. That's not really what we see from Chase Hooper. It's just kind of a break out the cymbals, and he somehow kind of bumbles his way in to a grappling exchange and finds a way to submit guys. And I think that that's what's going to happen here. I think Chase Hooper is going to be able to submit Lance Gibson in this fight. Now, if not, I think Chase Hooper will be able to control Lance Gibson on the floor for a large majority of this fight. He's got good control. He can backpack you, get the body triangle locked in, flows very well. He's very creative, very slippery. And I know that Gibson does have a solid ground game, but I don't think he's been in there with anybody nearly as good as Chase Hooper on the ground. And while Gibson, I'd say that he probably does have the striking edge in this fight, and he moves pretty well, he's a little bit shy to pull the trigger with some of the boxing and letting his hands go. And I think he has power, right? So if he lets loose and comes out here, motivated from that Bob Green loss and is just biting down and throwing, and he could sprawl and brawl, I definitely see a world to where Lance Gibson can win this fight. But I think Chase Hooper's fought the better competition. He's been in there, even though a lot of those guys are older. And again, when we look at some of the competition for Chase Hooper, he was in there with a youthful guy that could strike at Alexander Hernandez, and he easily put Chase Hooper away. Walked him right into a right hand. It was a beautiful setup by Hernandez. But to be fair, I think Hernandez would run over Lance Gibson. So to me, it comes down to the fact that even if it's stuck on the feet, I don't know that Chase is in a world of trouble. I think he will be a step behind because I do think Lance is a little bit better there. But Hooper can mix in the kicks, make it awkward, make it funky, make it kind of a Looney Tunes style of striking battle. And I think when the fight gets to the floor, if Bob Green's taking you down, we've seen Gibson taken down in the past as well. I think Chase Hooper is the most dangerous guy that Lance has fought when it comes to the grappling. I think Chase, in some sort of scramble, will be able to find a submission in this fight. I think that this is a good bounce-back opportunity for Chase Hooper. I think he comes through and gets it done by a submission. If not, he'll outscore Lance by landing some shots on the feet, controlling him on the deck. Give me Chase Hooper to get it done. Next, we got Ignacio Bahamondes versus Tofiq Musayev. This is a good fight. Because Tofiq Musayev, I feel like people might write him off a little bit coming into this fight again because he was coming over from Bellator/PFL, right? Had some time in Ryzen. This dude's very explosive on the feet. Very explosive on the feet, and he's mainly a striker. He gets a little bit wild, throws big winging power shots, forgets the technique a little bit, gets a little bit wild and reckless, but to his benefit, he's usually able to pressure guys, threaten with some grappling at moments because he does have decent grappling. That's just really not his bread and butter. He will take guys down and does have a capable ground game, but this dude could get it done on the feet. He's got nasty power, mixes things up really well. We're ripped to the body, kicks to the leg, mixes up the targets, and he has nasty power in that right hand. And that's what we've seen throughout his career. And in his debut, this was a disaster. I mean, that's pretty dirty work, man. For your debut to have to go in there with Mikdavek Orlobay, a guy that's been training and preparing for fights like this since 1100 BC, man. I mean, Orlobay's been training since the Ice Age. He's just got I say this, man, he's got a sophisticated experience advantage over everybody in the UFC. Orlobay's just a step ahead. He's got the wisdom. He's wise, and to be fair, I'm joking around, but Orlobay's really good, man. Like, in case you haven't noticed, and I've been saying that, Orlobay, one of the most, well, he's not underrated anymore, but he's a dark horse in the UFC. Like, he's going to be at the top of the welterweight division, and he's at welterweight. This is at lightweight here. And when I look at this, Tofiq Musayev is very dangerous, and I think he's capable of landing something on Bahamondes. I think he's capable of taking him down and winning minutes and outstriking him on the feet and playing that kind of game, but is it likely? That's where I'm like, I don't know about it. And Musayev, he leaves too many openings. And we've seen from Bahamondes, right? He lost to Ludovic Klein almost 3 years ago, but, knocking out Yagos with the head kick, starching Manuel Torres. This was a beautiful KO, and look how well this win has aged. And what happened in this fight? Torres was throwing these big winging power shots, kind of like Tofiq Musayev a little bit. And that's where Bahamondes stayed technical and sharp and went straight down the pipe and was able to catch him. Jalen Turner, they got into a grappling entanglement. We've seen Bahamondes. Ground game is very, very good. Training with Bilal Muhammad and those guys, they've been very, very high on Bahamondes, right? He's a rangy dude. I mean, 6'3", 75.5-inch reach. He's got probably the biggest frame in this weight class, if I had to guess, at least one of them. And then most recently, I faded him in this fight against Rafael Fiziev because Fiziv's got very good pocket boxing, and he's a very good striker, very experienced. But I think in this fight, Tofiq Musayev, for as good as he is, and as much as I like this guy in Bellator, and I like him as a fighter, every single fight that he's in is very action-packed, and I know he got ran over by Orlobay, but we know how good of a grappler Orlobay is, and I think Orlobay, even at lightweight, probably would have ran over Bahamondes. So, tough debut. And then now in your second fight here in the UFC, it's another tough one because I think Bahamondes is very clean on the feet. He is a little bit hittable, but when you load up and you throw these wild punches, sure they can land and he could knock out Bahamondes. But I think Bahamondes is going to snipe Tofiq Musayev as he gets overly aggressive and starts throwing these big wild shots. And I think it's going to look almost like the Torres fight. That's just kind of how I see this fight. I'm not saying Musayev and Torres are the same fighter, but I see some similarities with the loading up on these shots. And if you're going to be untechnical in there and you're going to leave all these holes and openings on the feet, Bahamondes will take advantage of it, man. He's a rangy guy. He's got good kicks, can switch stances very well. He's a high-level striker. Good boxing, good knees, and he moves very, very well. And with that movement, he will pull you into his counter shots. And I think that that's what he's going to do with Tofiq Musayev in this fight. And if it's not going well for Tofiq on the feet, he's going to take down Bahamondes. And we've seen Bahamondes is good off of his back. We saw him sub Jalen Turner. And I know Jalen Turner not exactly a grappler, but we've seen Musayev get into some trouble with guys being able to submit him. And I think Bahamondes has a little bit of an underrated submission game. We've kind of seen that throughout his career in moments. But I think in this fight, it plays out on the feet. Musayev comes forward going, haymaker away, throwing these big, big missiles. And that's where Bahamondes is going to be technical, and he's going to sharpshoot him right down the pipe, catch him with a right hand, attack the lead leg, slow down some of the movement. But I think he's going to snipe him. As Musayev throws that big looping shot, I think Bahamondes is coming right down the middle with a counter shot. He's going to be able to sit him down and get him out of there. If not, I think Bahamondes will outstrike him, outscore him, keep him at range, and be able to outstrike Musayev in this fight. Because while Musayev has underrated grappling, and we've seen it from time to time, I don't think it's so much better than Bahamondes. And on the feet, I think you're kind of looking at Musayev almost needing a KO to win this fight, because in terms of the volume, the versatility, that all sides with Bahamondes. I got Ignacio in this fight. I've been high on him. I like him a lot, and I think he sharpshoots Musayev early in this fight here and gets it done. Next, we got Terrance McKinney versus Kyle Nelson. Now, essentially every Terrance McKinney fight, you basically have a double prediction. You basically have two picks for this fight. So I'm going to give you my legit pick, I guess we'll call it, of what I'm going to select here. But it's either Terrance McKinney's finishing Kyle Nelson in the first round or he's losing. That's just the way that that's just the way that T-Rex's fights are. And it's why he's one of the most exciting fighters in the UFC. You start the timer for Terrance McKinney, and it's like he knows coming in here, he's like, man, I got stuff to do outside this fight, man. I can't be in here for longer than 5 minutes. He starts the timer, the fight goes, and he's like, I got to get this thing done inside the first round. That's just his style. And every single fight, I think, 25 fights for Terrance McKinney, or however many it is, all of them have been by finish, I think, right? Comes out like a bat out of hell, gets in your face, and for that duration, until he either gets knocked out or he knocks you out, he is very, very, very explosive. He's got nasty striking. He can switch stances well. He's very technical. He's got solid wrestling. He's got a good submission game, and he's the complete package as a fighter. It's just after those first couple minutes, it all just goes downhill. The defense, the cardio, it all goes downhill. So essentially, do I think Terrance McKinney can put away Kyle Nelson early? That's what we're breaking down here. Can McKinney finish Kyle Nelson in the first round, or is Terrance McKinney going to get knocked out or submitted by Kyle Nelson? I think Terrance McKinney is going to be able to jump on Kyle Nelson, and I think that he is going to be able to put him away via knockout in the first round. Now, I will say this. Kyle Nelson's looked pretty good lately, and I think that there's definitely a scenario where we've seen McKinney, even though he gets, all of his knockouts are basically first round or submissions or first round submissions, he's still susceptible to being finished in the first round as well. It's not like McKinney just runs everyone over in the first round and then, if he doesn't, well, then it goes to the second round. No, he's been finished as well early, and we've seen that, right? We saw him get knocked out by Esteban Ribovic. That was a nasty combination as McKinney was switching stances. Ribovic threw the head kick. It was beautiful. Took out Damir Hadzovic. Borshov, right? Taking him down, was able to submit him. That was nasty, right? And most recently, he had Duncan in a world of trouble, but I picked Duncan because I think Duncan's good, and he's very durable. Right now, I got questions about the durability of Kyle Nelson. Even though he's on a nice win streak, look who he's beating. Blake Builder, Fernando Padilla, Bill Algeo. I think Terrance McKinney probably beats all these guys. And then he gets knocked out by Steve Garcia. I mean, Steve Garcia is an absolute monster, so no harm, no foul there. And then most recently, beating Matt Frivola. And again, that fight probably should have been stopped earlier. So Nelson, this shouldn't have went to a decision. I thought he had the finish. So Nelson's technical. And I think as the fight plays on, Nelson's definitely live to get this thing done. So, I don't know. Coin flip fight. It's either basically, do you think McKinney finishes him early? And then do you think that McKinney gets knocked? It's tough picking a Terrance McKinney fight, man. But I think that Kyle Nelson, while he's been on a nice win streak, he's not the fastest guy in the world. And he's not the most durable guy either. And I think that Terrance McKinney is going to be able to pounce on him. And we've seen guys like Steve Garcia. If you can pounce on Kyle Nelson, then you could take advantage of him early with him trying to be that technical guy, get a feel for the fight. I think McKinney is more explosive. He's faster. He's very well-rounded, especially for those couple minutes once the timer starts. And I think McKinney can take him down and submit him. But I think on the feet, we've seen Kyle Nelson. We've seen him rock before. We've seen him in trouble. I think Terrance McKinney will pounce on him early in this fight. It's in Washington. McKinney's going to be all fired up. I think he goes out there and gets this win over Kyle Nelson. He needs to win this fight. I think McKinney does. This is a must-win, in my opinion, for Terrance McKinney. I think he goes out there and is able to get it done against Kyle Nelson. But like I said, we all know how the McKinney fights go. Either gets the early finish, he gets finished, or if it goes past the first round, it's going to be Kyle Nelson's fight probably all day long in case something brand new happens that we just haven't seen before. But I got Terrance McKinney getting it done by knockout. Maybe drops him, maybe shoots a takedown right away and is able to submit him. I feel comfortable to a degree picking McKinney to get to get the first round finish. Never confident in a Terrance McKinney fight though, but I think Nelson, I don't think he's going to be able to get out of the way. That's my point. I don't think his defense is that great. I think McKinney should be able to get him out of there. Yousri Belgaroui versus Mansur Abdul-Malik. This is a fantastic fight. This is a fantastic fight. And these are two guys that I've highlighted as, I think in my video, is my dark horse video or my prospects video, I said that these are two prospects in the middleweight division that I am really high on. And I highlighted both of these guys for good reason. Now, I didn't expect them to be fighting each other this soon. So this is a little bit surprising to me that the UFC has decided to put this fight together here. Now, here's what I'm going to say. Yousri Belgaroui, I doubted my instinct in the fight against Azamat Bakoyev. If you go back and you listen to my breakdown, I basically told you why to pick Yousri Belgaroui, but I thought that I was being so biased because I am biased towards a lot of the Glory kickboxing fighters when they come to the UFC because I've been watching them. I watch a lot of Glory, and I thought that I was being too biased by picking Yousri Belgaroui because we had seen on the Contender Series, he had problems with the takedown defense. We saw Bakoyev, he was a monster. His wrestling's really good. His striking is powerful. And I went against my instinct, and I thought I was being too biased by making the pick, and I messed up, man. That happens a lot with my predictions, by the way. Break down the fight perfectly, and I picked the wrong guy. So I'm not making that mistake in this fight. I think Yousri Belgaroui is a bad matchup for Mansur Abdul-Malik. And I know I like Mansur a lot, man. Wrestled at the University of Maryland. He's an explosive athlete. He's got devastating power. His submission game, we've seen. I mean, he submitted Antonio Tricoli, but we haven't seen a ton of his submission game, right? He was struggling at moments against Cody Brundage. Not a good look. Got dropped and hurt badly by Nick Klein. Right, was able to stop Dusko Todorovic, was able to put it on him. But, I mean, if you put Dusko in there with Yousri, Dusko's getting knocked out in a minute. Right, and he stopped Wes Schultz on the ground, but Wes Schultz isn't that great. I mean, I think Mansur is very good. He's very explosive. He's got the ground game. He's got explosive striking on the feet, but he has never been in there with someone even close to as good of a striker as Yousri. Not even close, man. Like Yousri Belgaroui, and I was glazing him coming into the UFC because I've been watching Yousri for years, man. I didn't think we'd actually see him in the UFC. I didn't know if he was going to go the MMA route. I think he saw from Izzy and Poatan because he fought both of those guys in Glory, right? He had I think it was a trilogy with Poatan, fought Izzy at least once. And Yousri Belgaroui is really good, man. He's got a massive frame for this weight class, 60 or a 79-inch reach, 6'6". I'm going to set a 66-inch reach. No, this dude's for real, man. Training with Glover Teixeira, with Alex Pineda, Teixeira MMA and Fitness. I think Yousri Belgaroui is a really bad matchup for Mansur Abdul-Malik, man. I think he's going to end up knocking him out in the second round. And, you know, you can say what you want about Azamat Bakoyev, maybe being a little bit overrated. He's been in the fight game for a really long time. Bakoyev has a world of experience in terms of not just maybe the background that Mansur has, where Mansur was a high-level collegiate wrestler, but in terms of MMA wrestling, Bakoyev's been doing it for years. And his striking, you know, he's been fighting for years. Mansur's new on the scene, man. He's new on the scene, and I think he's very explosive, and I think he's got a bright future, but we've just seen in some of these fights, he hasn't been handling these guys, and he's been, you know, I think a big favorite in all these fights for good reason because he's explosive. He's a great athlete. He has the wrestling, has the ground and pound. We saw him submit Tricoli, which we just saw, you know, Mantis struggle a little bit with Tricoli, so we also saw Tresean Gort easily submit Tricoli as well. So I don't know, man. I like Mansur. I think he's capable of getting this done if he's able to get to the takedowns, if he's able to control Yousri on the floor. Maybe Yousri's so worried about the takedowns that he gets clipped with a big shot because Mansur is very powerful. But Belgaroui's for real, man. His striking is as high level as it's basically going to get in this weight class. Now that, well, Izzy's still around at middleweight, but now that Poatan moved up to 205, like, I think Yousri's a guy that he might win the belt at some point. And I know he's 33 years of age. Him solving the Bakoyev puzzle was, my question was answered of what does the takedown defense look like, since we saw it was a little bit of a mess on the Contender Series. The first go-round, I think that was the Marco Tulio fight. Mansur Abdul-Malik, he's got good wrestling. I think even if he does take down Yousri, we haven't seen great control. And I think Yousri pops back to the feet. His boxing is clean. The kicks from range, the calf kicks are nasty. He is operating at such a much higher level than Mansur on the feet that it's just not even close. Mansur basically has to land some sort of winging punch that Yousri just doesn't see coming. Or he gets taken down and controlled and Mansur beats him up on the ground with ground and pound and gets a stoppage that way. Because Yousri, it's night and day on the feet. Night and day on the feet. And in terms of the grappling, like, sure, if it's a straight grappling match, I mean, Mansur wins, but this is MMA. And we've seen Yousri's takedown defense is really good. And working with Glover Teixeira, training with Alex Pineda. I mean, these guys got answers for the takedown defense. They kind of, Glover gives you that speed run through the curriculum on basically Here's not everything you need to know about grappling. Here's the cliff notes to be able to stuff the takedowns. If you get taken down, here's how you stay safe. Here's how you get back to your feet. Here's how you shut guys off along the octagon side. I think Yousri Belgaroui is I said it before, I'll say it again. I think he's a bad matchup for Mansur. And I like both of these guys. I'm high on both of them. I think Mansur has a bright future. We've seen him in trouble against guys that are nowhere near as good as Yousri Belgaroui on the feet. Nowhere near. Belgaroui's striking is nasty, stabbing front kicks up the middle, nasty head kicks as well, good long straight boxing combos, knees up the middle. He has a full array of striking weapons. I think this is a disaster for Mansur, and I'm honestly kind of surprised the UFC booked this fight because I feel like they would try to build up both of these guys. It reminds me of when they did Bekzit Almakhan versus Alexandre Topuria. I'm like, it's a good fight and it's going to be action-packed, but you're kind of dampening one prospect per se. So I'm not counting out Mansur. I know it maybe sounds like I am because he is really good with the grappling, and I think he's a better grappler than a lot of the guys Yousri has fought. But given what we've seen from Bakoyev in terms of MMA overall grappling, I think he's pretty good. And from what we've seen from Mansur, we've seen him have some issues with guys that are, in my opinion, nowhere near as good as Yousri, especially when it comes to the striking. And I think Yousri stops the takedowns. If he gets taken down, he'll pop right back up. Mansur's not a great submission threat. His striking on the feet is very raw. He's got some power. It's just night and day on the feet, man. Belgaroui with the setups, the traps, the feints, building his reads, where Mansur's just kind of out there just being like, okay, I'll throw this, I'll throw that, I'll fake a level change, and I'll throw this, where everything is a setup and everything is methodical and intentional from Yousri. I think he's going to batter the lead leg of Mansur, make him a sitting duck, and is going to be able to take him out with the hands and get the second round knockout. I love Yousri Belgaroui, liked him in glory. I'm not letting what I thought was my bias cloud my judgment. And also, I had some worries about the takedown defense. All of the questions I had have been answered. Belgaroui, the real deal. I've been a fan of this guy for a really long time. I think he goes out here, and I've been watching him for years, man. This dude is legit. I didn't think we'd see him in the UFC, so I'm very excited about it. Seeing these guys come over. Hopefully we see more guys come over. And it doesn't always work out. We see Cesar Almeida hasn't really worked out. I think it works out for Yousri Belgaroui, man. He's for real. Dangerous as can be. I like that he's training with Poatan and Glover. I think he's a bad fight for Abdul-Malik. I think he puts him away. Next, we got Julian Erosa versus Lerryan Douglas. This is a great fight. And Juicy J, Julian Erosa. I'm always tuning into a Julian Erosa fight. But you know whose fight I'm also tuning into from now on? Always and forever. Always and forever. Lerryan Douglas. This dude right here. I'm not going to hype him up maybe too much because this is the debut in the UFC. I'm seeing shades of Topuria, Kevin Vallejos-like style. That's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing a guy with good defense, excellent boxing, vicious intent with every single shot that he throws. He's not in here to win on points. He's not in here to stick and move, have a tit-for-tat, educated striking battle. That is not what Douglas is looking to do. He has one mission, and that's to move forward and knock your ass out. And what we've seen throughout his career is, he's got, some losses on the record, but this guy, to me, has gotten so much better since those fights back in the day. And I like prospects that come off of LFA. We've seen a lot of great fighters come over from LFA, and he's knocking everybody out, man. And on the Contender Series, knocking out Cam Teague was violent. It was ferocious. And I know Cam Teague isn't the greatest fighter. I've never really been high on him, especially the times we saw him on the Contender Series. It was a rough go those times for Cam Teague. He was just basically a guy that got knocked out every time, unfortunately. And I like Teague. He's a skilled fighter, but Lerryan Douglas is a monster, dude. That left hook, the way that he sets it up, the way that he just kind of springs in with that leaping left hook, if it lands on Julian Erosa, he's shutting his lights off. And that right hand behind it, that overhand right that he sets up, it's nasty, man. These shots are murderous, nasty power shots. And he's very, very methodical with the way he's setting these shots up, man. And the leg kicks as well. He's got a sneaky little leg kick we see from time to time. The question I have in this fight is if he doesn't knock out Julian Erosa, what's going to happen? Because Julian Erosa is a guy that we've seen knocked out plenty of times throughout his career. And he's 36 years of age, but to me in fight years, he's older than that. And he's got so much experience, 31-12. Right, and out of his last 5 fights, got knocked out by Fernando Padilla. Not a great look coming into this fight because I think Lerryan Douglas is a nightmare compared to him. Right, submits Ricardo Ramos, submits Christian Rodriguez, stops Darren Elkins, but Darren Elkins was landing shots on the feet. And Darren Elkins at this point was so over the hill, man. And then he got outscored by Melquizael Costa, and I picked Melky Costa, been very high on him, right? And again, we saw Erosa starting to pour it on late. So if Douglas doesn't get that early knockout, what's going to happen is my question. Because Erosa's got good knees, walks forward with the hands low, loves the pressure, mixes things up. He's got a dynamic attack. His striking's pretty good. His ground game is good front headlock position, good chokes. Very well-rounded fighter. He's got cardio. He's durable. But by the same token, when we say he's durable, that chin has been cracked numerous times. If you're getting knocked out by a lot of these other dudes, man, I don't think you're surviving a power shot from Lerryan Douglas. And I'm going Douglas by first-round knockout, man. I think that this dude, again, I don't want to hype him up too much and put the cart too far before the horse because this is the UFC debut. And we've seen guys come in and, they look a little lackluster or whatever. This guy's got some experience. And what we saw in the Contender Series, I think he can get through the reach of Julian Erosa. Julian Erosa's got the 2.5-inch reach advantage, but he doesn't use it that well. He likes to pressure, likes to put that pressure on you, back you up along the octagon side, get the front kicks going, get the long-range tools going. But we've seen that head movement, it's almost non-existent. The chin is right there. The defense lets him down, I feel like, a lot of the time. And Erosa's hands are low, man. They're very, very low. And I feel like in a fight like this, that's scary. I think Douglas is going to get the jab going, throw that big right hand, is going to lunge in with a left hook, and is going to find the chin of Julian Erosa very early in this fight and is going to be able to knock him out. But like I've been saying, if he doesn't get the early knockout, it's not to say it can't happen in the second round, but we've seen with Douglas, it's more of seek and destroy, trying to land that big power shot to where if he doesn't land it, I could see Erosa moving forward, putting the pressure on him, kind of peppering him, dragging him into deep waters, and outscoring him, maybe finding a submission late, maybe catching him with a shot and putting him away. But most likely it would be Erosa winning a decision on the cards, putting the pressure on him, weathering the early storm, weaponizing the experience, the pace, the output, all those kinds of things. I'm going to side with Douglas in this fight. And I wouldn't be shocked if Juicy J looks to grapple early to try to kind of drag this thing out and not let Lerryan just kind of snipe at him and be super dangerous early on in this fight. But I like Douglas a lot. I love what I saw in the Contender Series. I love what I was seeing in LFA. He's got nasty boxing, very, very educated with the hands. I think he puts out Julian Erosa in the very first round and makes a statement in Seattle. I like Lerryan Douglas a lot, man. I think he makes it look easy. All right, we got Michael Chiesa versus Niko Price. I waited to make my video because I knew that there was no way, at least I thought, that there was no way that Michael Chiesa was not going to be on this card because I think that this is his last fight, right? And I've been a fan of Michael Chiesa, man, and if I'm not mistaken, I don't think he's ever knocked anybody out in his career. So how nuts would it be if he knocks out Niko Price in the retirement fight? That'd be pretty crazy. Now, the thing with Michael Chiesa, he's been taken care of by the UFC with a lot of these matchups. He's a guy that's been around for a while. He's got some name value, right? And Michael Chiesa's got some pretty impressive wins, right? Beneil Dariush was able to beat him back in the day, right? He's got some very, very impressive wins. But Michael Chiesa hasn't been the most active guy. And I know he fought 8 months ago. That's an older, washed-up Court McGee, where he was basically able to kind of outstrike him on the feet, was able to outscore him with the grappling, really everything. And Michael Chiesa moves a lot, man. He's got a lot of movement, and he's been doing the whole commentary thing for a while, which to me, that helps your mind. That helps you become even smarter of a fighter, right? You're looking at things from a different angle instead of just training and watching some film. You're really analyzing fights, right? And I know he's got a YouTube channel now. Shout out Michael Chiesa's YouTube, man. I like Chiesa a lot. I'm a big fan of his. And, he's very, 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 very smart with his approach. And we saw that against Max Griffin, sticking and moving, using a ton of lateral movement, eventually getting to his takedowns, and was able to get to the back of Max Griffin late in the fight and find the submission. Was able to submit Tony Ferguson. But we know that this was kind of the, I don't want to be too mean about Tony, but it was definitely not a prime Tony Ferguson, to say the least. Got subbed by Kevin Holland, which I thought was kind of surprising. Lost to Sean Brady, but Brady's a monster. So the UFC's looked out for Chiesa, especially over these past few fights, man. They give him some of these older guys that aren't going to crush him. And here they're looking out for him with Niko Price. Because remember when Niko Price got thrown in there with Robbie Lawler for Robbie's last fight and he got knocked out? So I feel like Niko Price, the flamingo, I call him the flamingo, right? That body just kind of, moping around. He's got a crazy build, man, for this weight class. 6 foot, 76-inch reach. He's got long arms and awkward style. But he kind of just moseyed right into range and got knocked out by Robbie Lawler. And I think Niko Price is a nice guy, man. And he's one of these dudes that he doesn't like to let these OGs go out with a loss in the retirement. And I think in this fight, his last win out of his past several fights is Alex Morono, man. Losing to Themba Gorimbo, getting outscored by him, not a good look. got dominated by Jacoby Smith. We saw Smith slow down a little bit in this fight, and it looked like Price was maybe going to pull off some sort of Hail Mary victory, but ended up getting stopped. And then Nikolay Veretennikov, we all saw this coming. This was a disaster for Nico. This is pretty simple. I don't know. I don't think Michael Chiesa is getting his first KO. I don't think he's had a knockout, right? I'll have to fact check that. But I'm pretty sure Michael Chiesa's never knocked anybody out. He doesn't have a lot of power in his hands whatsoever. Doesn't really sit on any of his punches. Uses a ton of lateral movement. Tries to kind of bait you into chasing after him. Then he level changes. He is a much better grappler than Nico Price. And I think on the feet, Nico's maybe the better striker and more dangerous striker, which is kind of crazy that we're saying that at this point in his career. But Nico Price is a shell of himself. And I think even though Chiesa's older, I wouldn't say that Chiesa's really a shell of himself. I just think he's older. You know what I mean? Like, I still think he's got it to a degree, especially against like a guy like Nico Price. I think Chiesa goes out with a bang here, man. I think he goes out with a bang here in Seattle, and I think he's going to end up submitting Nico Price in the second round. If not, he'll just win a decision, outland him on the feet, utilize a ton of movement, get some takedowns. We've seen Price's ground game's good. He's not the easiest guy to submit. He scrambles well. Not an easy guy to hold down, but, I mean, come on, man. I can't pick Nico Price whatsoever. And the UFC, they're doing right by Michael Chiesa here, which I like. He's an OG of the game, a legend. I like Chiesa. Maybe not the most exciting style, right? But especially a younger Chiesa, man, his ground game is legit. His submission skills are very good. Good jiu-jitsu, great back takes. Then he gets to the back of Nico Price at some point and is able to submit him. I'll say round 2 sub by Michael Chiesa. Maybe it happens later. Maybe it happens earlier. If not, he just wins a decision over Nico Price with control time, peppermint shots on the feet. How crazy would it be if Michael Chiesa gets the KO over Nico Price? It's definitely possible. Nico Price is as chinny as it gets at this point in his career. The flamingo in his way around in there, Nico Price. He's getting ragdolled, I think, by Chiesa. Give me Michael Chiesa here. All right, co-main event. We got Alexa Grasso versus Macy Barber 2. This is a rematch. And having a few years back, to where Alexa Grasso, I believe she won 29-28. So it was a close fight. So I feel like we're looking at something a little bit more of the same here. Chicago, that tumbling town. I got that at UFC 319 when I was in Chicago visiting, got that Chicago mug. So here's what we're looking at here, back on track. I feel like a lot of people are massively overrating Macy Barber. I'm cutting right to the chase. I'm not going to fluff this thing up with a bunch of words. Macy Barber's overrated. I think she's good. I think she's skilled. I think she's improved since the first fight with Alexa Grasso. You know, she's got good output. She's on a nice win streak. But look who she's beating. Jessica Ai, Andrea Lee, Amanda Hebos got the stoppage. That was nice. I mean, Corinne Silva, not a bad win, right? 3 months ago. I guess why would you pick Macy Barber is my question. She's going to out-volume Grasso? Okay, maybe. She's going to out-grapple her? I'd be kind of surprised. Okay, so let's say the grappling exchanges don't really happen and we're stuck on the feet. Does Barber maybe have the output advantage? Okay, she's got the kicks, the elbows, the knees. She's going to, throw them, make a bunch of sounds. You know, I wasn't making fun of her. I'm just saying she makes some sounds, right? You know, so sometimes that can sound good to the judges, I guess. I feel like people are going to overlook Alexa Grasso coming into this fight. I guess the reason you don't pick Alexa Grasso is because you think Macy Barber has improved, right? And you think that Grasso's on the decline. And my question to you would be, why is Grasso on the decline? Because she lost to Natalia Silva? I think Natalia Silva beats the brakes off of Macy Barber. So, and I know it sounds like I'm kind of hating on Macy Barber. I like Macy Barber a lot. I just think she's overrated. And I do think to a degree Grasso might be a little overrated as well. But Grasso's past several fights, I mean, look at these fights. The past 4 years of her career, it's been Valentina Shevchenko multiple times and Natalia Silva. She's had moments against Shevchenko, even though Shevchenko's clearly the better fighter. Shevchenko would destroy Macy Barber. Even this current version of Valentina that just dominated Weili, right? When we were kind of like, maybe as Shevchenko slowed down a little bit. I think Macy Barber's good, and I think she could definitely win this fight. I just feel like she's being massively hyped up, and I just haven't seen. I've been picking Macy to win all of these fights, by the way. And I know she was supposed to fight, I think it was Erin Blanchfield. The whole thing happened there. That was nuts, right? But it sounds like everything's all right on the side of Macy Barber. And I think she's gotten a lot better. She's almost 28 years of age. Her striking is pretty good. She's got solid output. I don't think she's out grappling Alexa Grasso. And I don't think she's out striking Alexa Grasso. So I'm picking Alexa Grasso to win the rematch. Even though she won the first time, I'm picking her to win this fight by decision. I think she's able to outdamage Maycee Barber. Alexia Grasso, that similar style to Diego Lopes, right? Where I think they train together, right? You know, the high guard doesn't do the greatest job cutting off the cage, which is always my critique with Diego Lopes, as well as the footwork. They don't cut the octagon off very well. They kind of follow too much. But she's got that high guard defense. Her boxing is definitely better than Maycee Barber. And I feel like her grappling is really good. She might even have the grappling edge. Maybe Barber's grappling's gotten so much better to where we see it on display here against Grasso. And maybe that theory of Grasso being on the decline, she's doing commentary, I think, and all this other stuff, and kind of was at the mountaintop, and now what's the motivation? I'm not ready to give up on Alexia Grasso here because she lost to who? Valentina Shevchenko and Natalia Silva? I mean, Natalia Silva is probably the best prospect in all of women's MMA. I guess she's not really a prospect anymore because she's at the top of the weight class. But I think Alexia Grasso wins this fight. I think her boxing's the difference. I think her boxing's the difference. And maybe Barber, I can see the path to victory the more I think about it, right? Barber, the volume, the output, making the sounds, throwing a bunch of different shots out there, mixing up the striking variety. That can look a little bit better to the judges. But even if she does get the takedowns, I don't think she's holding Grasso down. And I feel like Grasso on the ground, her ground game is still really good, man. Good jiu-jitsu, solid wrestling, and I think on the feet, her boxing is tight, it's crisp, it's clean. She's got good combinations, rips to the body well, fights behind the jab. And I feel like she's going to stalk down Maycee Barber and put some pressure on her that Barber has not been feeling in these other fights. We haven't really seen anybody fully get after Maycee Barber. And I haven't seen this wow me performance from Barber, even though I'm picking her. I haven't seen that wow me performance. Maybe this is the performance. But I got to pick against Maycee Barber here. I think it's a competitive fight. I know maybe the way I'm talking about it sounds like I think that Barber's going to get smoked. I don't think so. I think it's a close fight. But I just think people are maybe I'm getting a little defensive over Grasso because I keep hearing my friends, man, Barber. It's like Grasso, dude, like Grasso's lost a step, Grasso's lost a step. I don't see it. Natalia Silva's a tough fight. She's a dynamic, fast striker, really good movement, really good arsenal, devastating kicks. Maycee Barber's improved. She's gotten better, but I think Alexia Grasso is able to tag her up with the boxing, can dictate where the fight goes. I think even if she gets taken down, she'll get back up, reverse position, have success with the grappling of her own. Maybe she even grapples in this fight to try to slow down Maycee Barber. But I think the experience, the pressure, fighting the better competition, I think that we're going to see it in this fight. But I expect a close one once again. I'll say 29-28, Alexia Grasso. If Grasso doesn't get it done, I think it's Barber. Someone's winning 29-28. Wouldn't be shocked if it's a split decision either. But I think it's the boxing of Alexia Grasso that gets it done. Maycee has improved, but I don't think she's improved as much as people maybe want to give her credit for coming in here against who I still think is one of the best in this weight class for sure in Alexia Grasso. Give me Grasso to get this one done. Last but not least, we have arrived at the main event of the evening. I'm very excited for this fight. We got Israel Adesanya versus Joe Pyfer. Fun fact about Joe Pyfer is those of you that have been watching the channel, I had a gym that I was training at when I was a little younger. There was a fighter from that gym that fought, I believe it's called Art of War, which is up in PA, where he fought, and we stuck around for the main event, and the fighter fighting in the main event was Joe Pyfer. I've been watching Joe Pyfer for a really long time. I know his game like the back of my hand. And another guy that I've been watching for a really long time, dating back to Glory Kickboxing, is Israel Adesanya. I know these dudes, every move you make. I know every move that these dudes make. I know all their tricks. I know all their feints. Everything these guys do. I feel like I got them figured out, man. And I feel like Israel Adesanya in this fight, I've been a little critical saying that I feel like he's fallen off a little bit, which I do think is somewhat true. I think that the durability is a little bit suspect. I think that the reaction time has slowed down a little bit. But I went back and watched that Dricus du Plessis fight the other day. And I went back and I watched the Nasruddin Imavov fight the other day. And I think Israel Adesanya has actually not fallen off at all. I don't think he has at all. Now, his willingness to exchange in the pocket, maybe that's changed. Maybe, like I said, the durability in the chin, I do think that there's miles on it to where it's more vulnerable than it has been in the past. And do I think he's as speedy as he was back in the day? No, I don't, which is natural. I mean, he's almost 37 years of age. But when it comes to the jab, when it comes to the leg kicks, when it comes to the kicks to the body, when it comes to the movement, Israel Adesanya in those fights, watch the DDP fight back again. Watch the first round of the Imavov fight back again. I mean, Izzy still to me actually looks better than what I was giving him credit for. And I've been picking Izzy. I didn't pick him against DDP. I can't remember who I picked in the Imavov fight. I thought that was going to be a competitive fight either way, and Imavov ended up knocking him out. And I'm very high on Imavov. I've been saying he's the best striker in this weight class. His hand speed's ridiculous. DDP, stumbles and bumbles his way into decisions, right? Or knocking people out or submitting people, following with the symbols. It's a circus show with DDP. It's a hard guy to deal with. And when you watch that fight back, you realize how good Dricus's kicks are. Lightning fast kicks, right? And very unpredictable. Sean Strickland, very difficult matchup for Adesanya in hindsight, right? The boxing, the movement, the defense. Knocked out Alex Pineda in the rematch. Was in some trouble in that fight, though, right? Was outstriking Alex Pineda this entire fight. Was easily winning the fight and then got knocked out. That's what's been going on for Adesanya recently. And Adesanya, I think, has 5 KOs in the UFC, and all of them have came within the first and second round. None after that. I'm worried, though, in this fight for Izzy of the sense that Joe Pyfer has the power to put anyone away in this weight class. Joe Pyfer's got a nasty left hook. He's got a winging overhand right that is a little bit ooga booga, right? Gets a little wild on the right hand, but we've seen if it lands, it can cause a world of problems for anybody. We saw him hurt Abdul-Razak Al-Hassan, submit him on the ground. We saw, and again, this was a mistake, putting him in a 5-round main event against Jack Hermansson. If it was a 3-rounder, Pyfer wins, and he doesn't have a loss on his record right now. But at the end of the day, it was still a 5-rounder. And Pyfer was working Jack early, and he wasn't able to get him away, or wasn't able to put him away. And then Hermansson battled back into the fight. And by the way, Jack Hermansson is nowhere near as good of a striker as Izzy. So that's something to keep in mind here. And in those later rounds, Hermansson started to school Pyfer on the feet, right? Marc-Andre Barriou, quick knockout. It was devastating. Kelvin Gastelum was beating the brakes off of Gastelum, almost knocked him out numerous times. But then once he couldn't get the knockout, the output slowed down, and Gastelum started to battle his way back into the fight. And most recently, didn't have a good first round against Abus Magomedov, got reversed, ended up on bottom, and then came out in the second round and was able to hurt Abus on the feet and was able to submit him. I think in this fight, it's definitely possible that Joe Pyfer crushes the space, gets to the inside, and is able to land a massive shot on Adesanya and put him away. I think it's also possible, because I've been saying for a while that Pyfer's ground game is very underrated, and we got to see that in the Abus fight, because Abus in the first round is actually, he looks like a top 5 fighter technically on the feet. And then after the first round, it all falls apart. I think if Pyfer crushes the space, he can land a shot on Adesanya. Now, my question is, is he going to flush knock out Izzy? It's possible. But I think even if he tags Izzy, Izzy will survive. We've seen him hurt before. We've seen him circle off. We've seen him find a way to make it happen. If Pyfer is able to take down Adesanya, we've seen his submission game is really good. But what have we seen from Izzy throughout his career is pretty much brick wall takedown defense. And a lot of that is he's got really good lateral movement, switches stances very well. He's got great footwork. He's a hard guy to get a hold of. I'm going to ride with the OG in this fight, man. I'm going to ride with the legend Israel Adesanya to win this fight by a decision. And I see a scenario where maybe Izzy's able to catch him with a counter shot early. Maybe Adesanya, for the first time in the UFC, is able to get a later round KO where Pyfer gets a little fatigued. He slows down. Izzy's able to get him out of there. Definitely possible. Definitely possible that Pyfer can find a finish early in this fight. What would really shock me is if Pyfer wins this fight by a decision. I would be shocked by that. Because that means that Pyfer is somehow outstriking Adesanya on the feet over the course of 25 minutes, or just rocking him, dropping him in every single round, which at that point I think Pyfer would get a KO. Or it's just Pyfer controlling Izzy on the ground for most of the fight, and I don't see that. I don't see that whatsoever. I still got questions about the gas tank of Joe Pyfer. We have not seen him in a 5-round fight since the Jack Hermansson fight. I have not picked against Joe Pyfer, actually. This is the first time I'm picking against him. Maybe he makes me pay for it. Joe Pyfer is very dangerous. One of the most dangerous guys in the weight class. I know he's got this kind of salty attitude where it just seems like Joe's mad at everybody. But he's a talented fighter. He's got a ton of power. His kicks are getting better. He's getting more confident. His confidence is growing. He trains with a really good team at Marquez MMA. They got a lot of savages up there. Joe Pyfer is really good, man. He's a very good fighter. But we've seen throughout Izzy's career, he has fought guys like Joe before. A simple man's game. A big winging overhand. A good left hook, which is definitely scary. But we saw Adesanya basically avoid the Pineda left hook for, 20-some minutes in the first fight until it finally landed late. Right? And he didn't get clipped by it in the second fight. So if you're not getting hit by the Pineda left hook and you're not getting clipped by a Nasruddin Imavov left hook, I don't know that Pyfer's left hook is landing. Imavov is way faster than Joe Pyfer on the feet. He's a much better overall striker than Imavov on the feet. And I think that there's maybe an argument that Imavov might be a better grappler than Pyfer. Maybe not. I don't know. But we haven't seen Pyfer against the top of the division. We saw Imavov try to get his hands locked and take down Adesanya. And Adesanya's defense held up really well. So I did a lot more film study on this fight than when I first made my breakdown, kind of why I'm a little torn on this fight. But I don't know if I gave Adesanya enough credit for how good he actually still looks. He's looking really good until he isn't. He's looking really good until he isn't. So in this fight, does that happen where he's looking really good until he isn't and Pyfer knocks him out or submits him? Possible, for sure. Pyfer's very dangerous. But if that doesn't happen, I think Adesanya fights behind the jab. He throws the jab, leaves it out there, fires the right hand behind it. I could see that landing on Joe Pyfer. If Pyfer gets overzealous, we see Adesanya drift away and throw these, fadeaway Patrick Mahomes, Matthew Stafford hooks, right, that he landed on Robert Whittaker. We saw him landing them a little bit against Nasruddin Imavov. The jab is looking better of Adesanya. I feel like his boxing's actually improved a little bit towards the later part of his career here. We know when he goes southpaw, throw the kick to the body, bring a kick upstairs. He's got a nasty question mark kick. Him and Alex Pineda became friendly, right? And I think that Poatan was giving him some tips on the calf kick. Adesanya's throwing that calf kick nicely now. Not as much telegraph. I think he works the lead leg of Joe Pyfer. I think he slows down his movement, rips the front kicks to the body. He's got to be a little bit careful doing that to where Pyfer can counter a kick and land a massive shot. Izzy does not want to box with Joe Pyfer. Get the jab going, stick and move, keep him at kicking range. If Pyfer can crush the space and get into the pocket and land a big shot, he could definitely put away Adesanya. But we've seen throughout Izzy's career, other than getting knocked out by Imavov, he has been very, very durable, man. He's eaten some big shots. He's been able to bounce back for the most part. Again, you look at the Gastelum fights, Adesanya and Gastelum having a crazy fight. Pyfer was beating the brakes off of Gastelum. Obviously, Gastelum at a very different point in his career, but so is Izzy. So this is the classic, the UFC taking a guy they're trying to build in Joe Pyfer, a hyped-up prospect who's very dangerous and is a very exciting fighter, and they're trying to throw him in there with the OG, the legend, one of the greatest of all time, and I think is, between him and Anderson Silva for the greatest middleweight of all time. Izzy in his prime, man, fighting like every other month. His activity was crazy. Super fun to watch. Good striker. He's been in there with power punchers before. He's been in there with guys, like Paulo Costa, who's not exactly a power puncher, but that was a masterclass performance. And Costa's a good striker. Jared Cannonier, good striker, especially back when he fought him there. Those guys got power, and they were not able to find Israel Adesanya. Can Joe do it? Adesanya, I feel like this is the most vulnerable he's been in his career with his durability, with his chin. Just overall, because he's, what's the motivation here for Adesanya? Is it to get back to the mountaintop? Is it to get a win, move up to 205? Is it to try to get the middleweight belt back? Like, what are Adesanya's kind of visions here moving forward? He's got, the fame, he's got all the stuff. But these are the challenges I've said before that really excite Adesanya. He plays into the anime themes and the vibes and all that kind of stuff, and he gets really excited. And I think Adesanya loves the idea coming into this fight of, I got to stick and move and be technical, especially early, because if this guy lands, he could knock me out. Adesanya is the kind of guy that doesn't scare him. That rises his level of play. That raises his level of ability, in my opinion. And I think he's going to be excited for this challenge. He likes this challenge. He loves the fact that there's, the new dog in the yard. Or remember when Adesanya did that and, peed on the cage or whatever he did on the way in. And now Joe Pyfer is that guy. And now Adesanya is trying to prevent him from taking his spot. I think Adesanya comes out here and puts on one of the best performances we've seen from him in quite some time. Might face some early adversity, but I think he makes it through it. Fights behind the jab, rips the nasty calf kick, switches stances. He's very, very good at, when you pressure him, he'll switch stances to get away even further, rip the kicks to the body, head kicks upstairs, maybe walks Joe into a high kick. I could definitely see that as well. The drift away hooks, the left hand, leave the right hand, or leave the jab out there, throw the right hand behind it. Joe Pyfer's got a simple game, man. It's effective and it's powerful and it's devastating, and he does have some underrated hand speed. So it's a very dangerous fight. Joe is a very dangerous guy, but after those first few rounds, given what we've seen so far, I would like to think that danger factor will drop off and kind of fade, kind of like it did in the Hermansson fight after the first few rounds. We also saw it in the 3-rounder against Kelvin Gastelum as well. If Adesanya does not get finished in the first couple rounds, I think we see cruise mode Izzy, jab and leg kicks, switching the stances, kicks to the body, and we'll find a way to outscore Joe Pyfer and win a pretty convincing decision here over Joe Pyfer. I like these guys a lot. They're both a ton of fun. Two of my favorite middleweights at this point. But give me the OG, the legend, Israel Adesanya. I think he breaks out some of the anime in this one, and we see some inner Rock Lee type stuff, man, and he goes out here and gets it done against Joe Pyfer. But if you guys enjoyed this video, my voice is tired, man, from all this yapping. I would greatly appreciate if you could subscribe. I know a lot of you that watch these videos, I check the analytics. You ain't subscribed. That's dirty, man. Go ahead and subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. And comment. Let me know what you think down below about my picks for this card. I'm excited for UFC Seattle. I think it's a really good one. And I will see you guys next time.